The Raspberry Pi Zero, which I don't know if you can see that. Yep. Raspberry Pi Zero is a pretty cool tiny computer that you can embed into projects. And one of the things I like about it is and sometimes when you're working on these projects, you'd like to be able to attach into them and debug them or do development while they're plugged into the hardware. So a lot of times with a Raspberry Pi, you could either be using it as a game emulator or something else, but a lot of times you'll have PIO, some of these sensors, servos, motors, LEDs, all that kind of stuff plugged in. And the problem I've always had with these is I really want to plug this into the back of something and bury it in there, and then I want to do remote development on it. And I would rather not open the Wi-Fi connection from a security point of view for that. And so in this case, it turns out a Raspberry Pi Zero and a couple others, you can actually turn them into an Ethernet adapter over USB, Ethernet over USB. And so it will look like this Raspberry Pi Zero is sharing a second network with this PC. I've actually got like 10 networks on mine now because of all the virtual machines. But in this case, a new network will show up, and this Raspberry Pi Zero will show up, and it will show up in local DNS as Raspberry Pi.local. So this is pretty easy. You basically use the Raspberry Pi imager. You can build this, and I did all this on Windows. I wanted to do all this on Windows. That's why it says PC. So so in my case, I have a Windows machine. All my machines are Windows machines. And then I'm going to do Linux development actually on the Raspberry Pi itself, or I could do cross compiles and downloads. But I'll talk about the development using Visual Studio Remote another time. So in this case, I'm going to be able to log into this Raspberry Pi Zero and configure it. But I want to do this. So there's a bunch of write-ups on how to do this. Turn this into a gadget, right? And what I found is they all require you to know stuff. And I didn't want you to have to do that. So I wrote this script. And actually, if you look at this Pi Ethernet Gadget on GitHub and you get this script, you can just run the script and it will automatically configure. Basically, you burn an image and then you run the script and you answer some questions in the script, and it will enable the Ethernet over USB gadget functionality, converting this into an on-the-go device. And it will set up the Wi-Fi connection. So if you want to give it internet access, you basically come in and debug on this connection. You would come in and you would have the Wi-Fi network to either talk to it or go out for other uses. Eventually, I'll upgrade this script to turn off SSH on the Wi-Fi and only enable it over the USB connection, right? Because it's security hold to leave any login capability over the Wi-Fi. All right, so the script I built for this is super straightforward. Not really. Well, kind of. So it actually does a couple things. And all of this came out of third-party websites. I just wrote PowerShell automation for this. So on a Windows machine, you can run PowerShell and configure this with only a single script. So basically what you do is you just run this script, and it says in the usage how to do that, right? Like right here. Basically enable Ethernet Gadget, tell it what the boot drive is, tell it what the network SSID you want, and that's optional if you want a network. But if you decide to do that, you're also going to need password. That should be password. I will fix that. And you put in the password, it will automatically edit all the scripts and touch everything for you. So I'll show you what it does. The first thing it does is it checks to see if it can find the drive. If it can't find the drive, it stops. If it can find the drive, it makes a backup of the brand new config files that were written to the disk by this Raspberry Pi imager. After it does that, it will actually touch the SSH file to make it where you can, it'll automatically, the Raspberry Pi will enable SSH on the first boot. And then the next thing it will do is it will add the gadget, the Ethernet Gadget overlay to the config file and to the command file. And it'll go out and see if these have already been done, so you can run this multiple times while you're playing with it. And you could restore from the original backup. And then if you tell it the network name and the network password, it will automatically edit the WPA supplicant file. And so this will enable SSH, enable network gadget, and optionally enable Wi-Fi. That's all you got to do is run this script with the command line options that are described here with the typo. And that's it. So the only thing else I wanted to show you, I can't remember. Did I show you this already? So when you plug this thing in, it'll actually show up as a USB Ethernet RNDIS gadget. And I put a screenshot in here of that also. You can see that right here. Okay. And so that's it. The only other thing I was thinking of doing, I could do a putty session. Let me do a quick putty. So putty, I'm on the Windows machine, and I'm going to do Raspberry Pi .local. And this is really tiny. So I thought I changed this already, but apparently not. What I'd like to do is I'm just going to quickly edit the settings and make this bigger for you guys. I apologize. And I'm going to change this to be 14 point font, and we'll say OK, and we'll say apply, and boom, log in. We're going to log in as Pi, Raspberry. This is the default password, which it tells you not to do. All right, and you can see I'm actually on a Linux machine using putty into my Raspberry Pi, and I can do something like ping www.google.com. All right, and that shows we're going over that we have a network access, and that's it, because I didn't turn on sharing or anything else. So this is, and that's it. So what did we do? We took a Raspberry Pi with no HDMI, no keyboard. We imaged it using the Raspberry Pi imager. We ran this script from GitHub, and it configured that thing to be a USB. I plug in the power adapter, I plug in the USB connection, and on the first boot, it takes a little while. I should be able to do ping or SSH from the PC to Raspberry Pi.local, and then I can do all my development remotely. One of the next episodes on this is going to be how to use Visual Studio Code to code on the device without having a monitoring keyboard on it. And that's it. I hope that was useful.